Well-balanced precision, American comforts, and European styling? Hello everyone, this is the 2022 EcoBoost Mustang Premium. So why oh why did I get a 2022 EcoBoost Mustang Premium instead of a 2023 Mustang or a GT? And honestly, the 2023s, I love the design. However, the design is similar to the one that I have now. So there's really no change, and that is why I picked up this 2022 instead. With that being said, the 2022 is starting to look a little outdated on the interior, and I'll speak more on that in a minute. But for the most part, the 2022 holds up, and I'm suspecting that these will sell for their actual MSRP price of about $35,000 due to the fact that the 2023s are now rolling out of the assembly line. So is this car a bad purchase in 2022? No. The EcoBoost Mustang packs a lot of power for the price, and you can't beat it. And honestly, the base model has the infotainment system that you need, and there's no point in getting all this fancy stuff that the Premium has unless you can afford it. There's definitely a lot of good features that this car has. Like, it's very well planted, there's no understeer, there's very little oversteer. It is very well built in the sense of like a track version car, and that's due to the fact that it is a Mustang. You know, all Mustangs are very well built. In some sense, the '05 Mustang is starting to look pretty terrible on the inside. I would know. I actually had one for like a month or two and I hated it, but they do make relatively good power. For the most part, you are getting the best bang for your buck with the EcoBoost Mustang. The horsepower is about 310, and that's really all you need in this time period. I mean, everybody's going after numbers, and everybody's like, what are you gonna do to it? What are you gonna do to it? And in my opinion, I don't think you should do anything. It is a very well balanced car. I am gonna change like a few appearance things that I see, but other than that, performance-wise, this thing is pretty steady. Anything in this price range is like a crossover or a sedan with like very little power. Now, with the side effects of a coupe, space. I mean, you can already see the back seat in the video, and there's not enough space for me in this car. I came from a 2016 Ford Explorer. There's just very little space in this car for me to do anything. However, it is made up by just the sheer amounts of fun that you can have with this car. You can literally toss this car around, and you know, that's what it's built for. It's built just to have fun and, you know, drive around and blare music, do whatever. Now, there are a few things that I have to complain about with this vehicle, and one thing that I really don't like is the 10-speed. Now, the 10-speed is notorious for being like extremely super fast, and on the downshifts, it takes a split second less than what I would appreciate. However, whenever it gets going, it gets going. It shifts super fast to the point where like I have paddle shifters on this, and there's no point in me having paddle shifters because a computer is shifting way faster than I can. And you know, that's also one of the reasons why I chose the automatic 10-speed. You can't really get that in a manual transmission. You can get the fun of throwing it around the corner, but you can't get the super quick speeds of a 10-speed. Another thing that I have to complain about is these cheap looking door panels. And honestly, these door panels just don't cut it in this time period. They could either be gloss black or suede or some type of material that just suits the car better for its appearance. And even in the higher end models like the GT500, which one of my buddies has, I communicated with him and he said, yeah, they're plastic. And I'm like, even in a $100,000 Mustang, they're plastic? That makes no sense. So stuff like that, the door panels are just not looking okay to me. And yes, you can make upgrades, as in like you can stick pieces of plastic over this piece of plastic, which I've been looking at. to make it look a little bit better, but I wish they would have went like a gloss black, or however you want to say, a piano black finish on these, because it just doesn't cut it in this time period. This car was designed around 2013 and 2014 and released in 2015, so they could have made periodic changes over time to the interior to make it just fit in with the times. In a Hyundai like base model car, you can get piano black or gloss black paneling on the inside these days, and you can get better like looking interior pieces on the inside. And that's just like one of my major complaints about this car in general, is it hasn't kept up with the times. However, the newest one that is being released, they have addressed some of the issues with the interior, but it still looks very similar to what we have now, which is my biggest gripe on this vehicle. But then again, it is a Mustang. It is a budget sports car. This is no Corvette. Like I said, you can get a piano black or gloss black finish on a, base model Hyundai these days. So, it just makes no sense to me why they didn't upgrade some of the interior pieces over time. Now, speaking more on the interior, there is a lot of stitching here, which you would see in more higher end vehicles, which is pretty nice. For the most part, it looks relatively nice in here, other than these cheap plastics that I had mentioned. Honestly, this design reminds me a lot of a Porsche, and that's a very bad thing to say, especially, dealing with American muscle. I'm also going to bring up that this takes a lot of styling from the Aston Martin on the outside, and I'm gonna explain that in a minute, but it's still like relatively looking like a American muscle. Now, one thing that I have noticed about this car that is really bothering me, because I've had this car for about a month now, is the freaking door speakers of all things. The freaking door speakers and the pillar speakers that I have up here. They look just so cheap, and honestly, they are cheap, because look, here's the cover to one. I mean, like, this fell off while I was driving, and this is a brand new vehicle. Like, it shouldn't be falling off. Now, the last thing that I have to complain about in this interior is the awful looking gear shifter. It is mimicked to look like a manual gear shifter. However, it says PR in the S twice in like the same exact place, which makes no sense to me why anybody would want to see that twice. In the 500, the gear shifter is changed out with like a turn knob gear shifter, so I would love to see that in this one, which I don't know why they didn't do that. I don't know why they didn't upgrade it over time. And I lied. The last legitimate thing that I have to complain about in this interior is this dome light. If you've known Mustangs like I have throughout the years, this dome light has been in the model run since 2005. Almost 20 years it's been in the model run. And I mean, yeah, you don't have to change it. It's, it does its functionality. However, it does not match with the interior, and you can tell. It just doesn't match. Now, what comes with the EcoBoost Premium? A lot of party tricks, basically. In the digital dash that you get in the premium version, there are a few like track features that you can get, like a timer or like line lock, for an example, which will lock up the brakes in order for you to do a amazing burnout. But why would you need that in an EcoBoost? I don't know, but it's there. Some other things that you get is the floor panel lighting, or the lighting on the sills for the doors that say Mustang on them, or the projection pony on the outside that you get. The premium versions of the Mustangs also get heated and cooled seats, as well as blind spot monitoring, lane keep assist, and adaptive cruise control. There's going to be some interesting things I have to say about the lane keep assist. Now, the lane keep assist does not always work. It only works whenever it wants to. Also, it doesn't work in snow and wet mode, which is a really good safety feature, because you don't want lane keep assist in snow and wet mode, because you're just going to lose control and get into a really bad accident. It also does not work whenever you have traction control off, which is also another good safety feature to have. The adaptive cruise control works very well. There are a few settings in the gauge cluster that let you adjust how sensitive you want it. There's also a few settings here on the steering wheel that let you adjust the sensitivity of the adaptive cruise control. The Premium Mustang also gets a 9-speaker stereo system, or you can upgrade to a Bang & Olufsen system. I cannot pronounce that whatsoever. To me, the 9-speaker stereo system works just fine. Also, in the premium versions, you get 3 memory seats here, which honestly makes no sense why you have 3 settings. I'm assuming that they took this out of like the more luxury versions of Ford, which would be Lincoln, and they just slapped it in the Mustang Premiums. You also get the seats moving back and forth whenever you enter or exit this vehicle. In the Premium Mustang, there are a few party tricks in here that you can change, like the interior lighting. There is a setting in the gauge cluster where you can change the interior lighting. There's also a few settings where you can change what the gauges look like on the inside, and you can actually add different gauges here. With that being said, those gauges are kind of pointless because the car will tell you in numbers instead of beautiful gauges what everything is doing in like the voltage or the boost or anything like that. So it's kind of pointless to have those gauges displayed on the digital dash. You'll find all of these settings whenever you hit the Pony button or the Mustang button, however you want to say it. And there's all sorts of options like my mode, track apps, gauges, my colors, and cluster appearance. Speaking of modes, there is a way to save your own mode, as in like you can save the steering that you would like and the drive mode that you would like together to your liking, basically. But here's my thing on these drive modes, especially in the EcoBoost. They make little to no difference. The only difference is the RPMs and the steering. And that's it. There's nothing else at all. Now, in these drive modes, there is a Sport Plus, a track mode, which I mean, you may want and need if you're going to be on a track, which I live nowhere near a track. A drag strip, again, I live nowhere near a drag strip, but if you want to, you know, those quick 0 to 60 times, by all means. There's also a snow and wet mode, like I mentioned. It brings the RPMs way down, it slows you down, and in my opinion, it uses more fuel. And then there's a normal mode. But then again, that's just normal. Now, for the steering modes, there is normal steering, sport steering, and comfort steering. And in my opinion, comfort steering is my favorite one. Now, all of these steering modes basically just change the electronic steering that you have in this vehicle, because most vehicles now have electronic steering. So if you hold up the traction button, it basically just turns off advanced track. And what that really does is it just makes it more slippery for you to go around the corners in like a track focused experience. Is the EcoBoost Mustang actually quick? Let's find out. I would say hell yeah. I mean, for the price, it is super quick, and I would say it is worth the buy, seriously. This video is being recorded on a different day. However, I did in fact say that this car looks like an Aston Martin, and I'm going to explain why. If you look at this windowsill here, it literally looks like a Aston Martin. The window goes all the way from the front to the rear, and at the very end of this car, it is so wide now, and I know it's to commemorate the 60s Mustangs and further on. However, this is so wide now that it literally looks like it mimics a Aston Martin. So is the outgoing model Mustang worth the buy? With its sharp cornering and ability to maintain a cult following, the 2022 EcoBoost Mustang Premium shares a common smile: speed.